So now that we know quite some stuff on how to write a program, and in particular, we know how to declare variables and how to write loops, we can start doing some exercises. And by the way, you can find all the code of this course on the GitHub /michelenuti/programming basics. And here is all the code we wrote until now, and you can find also the exercises as well as the solution. And you can, if you want, go copy the code from here for in order for you to be able to follow. So we will start by doing a really simple exercise. So given this for loop, you should be able to find a condition so that the block is executed only 5 times, and we expect the output of the program, which is called for pyramid. So by running node for pyramid.js, we should expect this output, and you are allowed to declare variables. You should fix this such that the block is executed 5 times, and you can use a console log function in order to print a line. Of course, you can now pause the video and try to solve the exercise yourself. So assume you have paused the video. I'll go on with the solution. Of course, please remember that there is not only one single valid solution, but of course I'll show you mine so that you can have some comparison. So I started by declaring a variable that holds an empty string, and I called the variable output because it is what it is going to be printed out in the console log function that we saw here. Then I use this variable here inside the for loop so that each time the block is executed, we take the output. And by the way, this is the same thing. This operator plus equal is the same thing as writing output equal whatever it is inside output. In the first case, the empty string, but in the later block execution, there will be something inside the variable. And so it takes the variable and adds to it, and we saw how to write expression with strings, adds to it a string containing a single character, and saves all this again in output. And once it saved it, it then prints it. Now, the condition I wrote, since we want the block to be executed only 5 times, is that the counter is always has to be less than 5, and I want then the counter to be incremented each time to get to the end of the for loop. So what does this code do is just declaring a counter that is available only in here, checking if the counter is less than 5, then execute code, and then once it has executed once the code, it executes this part of the code, and once again check the condition to be true. So this will be true only 5 times, since we have 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then 5 is not less than 5, it is equal. Therefore, this will be false, and the code will no more be executed. So we now launch the program using Node. We see, in fact, that the output is the expected one. For the next exercise, I would like you to write a program called FizzBuzz. So the rules for FizzBuzz are really simple. It is really just a loop that goes from 1 to 100, and it should print the number. But if the number is a multiple of 3, it should print bits. and if it is a multiple of 5, it should print bad. And if it is both a multiple of 3 and 5, it prints first hit and then bad. Now, a useful operation that you may want to use is the modulo operator. And what it does is kind of like a division, but it only returns the rest of the division. So if I write 3 divided by 5, we know that 3 divided by 5, 3 is less than 5, therefore it's 0. And the rest of this division is 3 itself. And if we write a number greater than 5, such as 7, we know that 7 divided by 5 is 1, with the rest of 2, therefore it returns 2. Now you can use this modulo operator, which you write by using the percent symbol. We know that each multiple of the modulo, and in this case is 5, each multiple of the modulo returns 0. And you can see it returns 0 for 5, for 10, for 15, and the same applies, of course, for another modulo. For 3, 15 of these, of course, also a multiple of 3, therefore it returns 0. So now you should have all the instruments to write such a loop. So please now pause the video and try to solve it yourself. So I assume you have tried to solve the exercise by yourself. So I'm going to show my solution. First, we declare a variable that holds a string. For each time the loop is executed, I check if the current loop is a multiple of 3 by doing counter modulo 3 is equal to 0. If this evaluates to true, then counter must be a multiple of 3. And then I add to the empty string a fit string. Therefore, now fit but string is fits. And then I repeat the same check for the 5 multiples by doing the same, of course, with the 5 modulo. And if counter modulo 5 is 0, then counter must be a multiple of 5. And in this case, I do add the but. Notice how I do not use if else, but I do only use if, because I want this other check to be executed no matter if this returns true or if this returns false. So I want this to be executed every time. And I do also do this after, because I want to be FizzBuzz in the case of the number being multiple of both 3 and 5. And I do this later, because if I did it first, I would have got the bad fit, which is not what the exercise asks for. And once I do the check for the counter to be a multiple of 3 or 5, I then check if any of the two above was true. And if it was, then the number was or a multiple of 3 or a multiple of 5 or both. And if that's the case, I want to print the string and not the number. If it is not, I use an else, and this covers every other case, so every other number. And in that case, I just print the number itself. So we can test the program by running node fizzbuzz.js, and we see that the result is what expected. Starting from 1, as an example, 15 is fit but, because 15 is 3 by 5, and it goes for until 100. Of course, 100 is a multiple of 5. So notice how if we comment out, and by the way, you can write, of course, a comment by putting a double slash, and a comment is just really a string that gets totally ignored by JavaScript. So this piece of code is now ignored, If we ignore this code and we rerun it, we see how uh, we get a much longer string and we do not get the fit bus or only fit or only path. And as you can see, also the output of say 15 is much longer. So resetting the string is actually an important part for the code to be correct.